Hi everyone, this is Derek Evans. This is my final reflection video for the WikiEDU project. Um Let me start off by saying I'm a little bit sick at the moment, so hopefully I don't sound too stuffy or anything like that, and everything comes across clearly. But anyway, this project was about, of course, writing articles in order to increase Wikipedia's representation of kind of underrepresented groups by writing articles on people from the STEM and tech fields who are from minority groups in order to kind of showcase their contributions to those fields. Trevor Rhone is, of course, a physicist in material science, um, who is kind of on his way to probably being a big-ish figure in the research into um, creating new materials for quantum computing and AI and whatnot. So that seems to be why he was included, and it was a fun project. Not only learning how Wikipedia works, but learning about his contributions as well. So anyway, let me get into kind of how I went about conducting research into this. I used the standard stuff, Google. I also attempted searches across Yahoo, DuckDuckGo. I attempted to use the library, the BBC library, and Google Scholar and stuff like that as well. But for the most part, all you can find there is just a lot of primary resources. And of course, with Wikipedia, we want to focus more on secondary resources and, you know, stuff that other people are writing about these people, not necessarily the research that they've done or things that they've written themselves. Kind of goes against the Wikipedia standards of what makes somebody notable. So after I still attempted searching in those areas, but after not finding much there, and plus the fact that he has a famous dad, so you know, searching Trevor Rhone would yield a lot of stuff on his dad and not him. I focus more on the standard search engines to try and find some articles. I also used AI a little bit as well, specifically Gemini from Google, because it's web. It's I don't know. It's easy for me to go to there and search for it. I've got it, uh, favorited, so I typically use that when I'm doing quick searches on, with AI. But I think it was there actually that I was able to find the article about his sister that I had ended up linking onto part of the biography from his early life and upbringing, just to add some personal touch there for him. For the resources, of course, started by adding everything from the guide slides. Came across some interesting things there when searching. I think it was first pointed out to me by Brianda. She mentioned something about one of our articles that we took from the guide slides was actually kind of a copycat article. I believe I've mentioned this elsewhere in some of the other reflections, and I wrote about it in my final reflection that there's a lot of copycat articles out there that were just literally the same article copied and pasted from one website to another. So I had to do a little bit of digging there. I'm sure everybody else did as well, but I would have to do a lot of verification there to find and make sure that the source that I was using to put on the bibliography and the main draft article was the actual original source for those words. Just trying to be as accurate and reliable as possible with those resources. I feel like I think on the bibliography I might have added just about every source that we had on there. I don't know if I was just working a little too quickly, maybe for the others, and stole the opportunity for some to contribute. Hopefully, that's not the case. because we were kind of limited on stuff that I know I could find on Trevor Rhone. So if I had added everything, there just wasn't anything else for anybody to add probably. But maybe I should have as a project manager delegated a bit more, and they could have added some of that stuff. Anyway, moving on to the content creation part. I think what I would do here is I would just kind of write, read the articles and write some handwritten notes, and then later on go and transcribe those notes without really looking at them much. That way, I could kind of separate my writing a bit more from the original source, kind of to avoid plagiarism and whatnot. And then from there, it was a matter of transcribing those type notes into the article space. And once again, I would try to do that without really referring much to my notes, uh, just to make it as unique as possible. And then once I'd be done with that, I would kind of go through the notes while looking at what I had written, just to make any edits, correct any incorrect information, and reword anything that needed to be reworded if it was too closely close to the source. My editorial process was, I kind of mentioned that as already with the creation process, because I kind of wove editing a bit into my processes, uh, just as I was creating. I would sorry, getting anyway. Yeah, my editorial process kind of woven into my working style, but that doesn't mean I would still go through the article, look for any awkward writing, and rephrase some things. And uh, typically, I like to read it, go and ruminate on it, and then come back later on with a fresh mind. And then that's kind of, I feel like, when the ideas come, is when you're not focusing so much on the work, and then you can actually just come back at it with a fresh mind and make any changes. So it's kind of how I worked on the editorial phase. Then the peer review process, I thought that was a pretty good process. I think we got some decent feedback from our peers. Now, we didn't really take everything into, well, I took everything into consideration that we said that we received from our peers, but didn't exactly implement it all. And I don't think we're really expected to implement everything, because they're students too. They're learning, they they gotta they needed to provide some sort of feedback. So, if they didn't find anything, they would probably add, little things here and there, which I think was okay. Because, for instance, like somebody suggested we change, how we had wrote Trevor Rhone's job title, assistant professor, and uh, can't remember the exact wording for it, but I reflected on that and ultimately decided we wouldn't make that change, because that was his job title. I think they recommended it. It's changing it probably because it was word for word the same thing that was on some of the sources. But if it's a job title, I feel like that's kind of an area that doesn't really qualify as plagiarism. But I think feedback like that still was very useful to me, because it would make me reflect on why we chose to include something, and whatnot. And even the good feedback that we received, that's not really doesn't really yield a list of tasks. Somebody's like, oh, this looks pretty good so far. Even feedback like that is useful, because you know I'm sure I wasn't the only one who going through this process. You're not sure if you're on the right path, but some feedback like that kind of helped cement that, yeah, we're probably going in the right direction for the most part. Um, and my achievements, I think I remained pretty active throughout the process. I was pretty happy with the sources I was able to dig up, because wasn't really a whole lot out there. With him having a famous dad, you find a lot of articles on his dad, not so much on him. So I was kind of getting into really specific search queries, which might have prevented some search results from coming up. But ultimately, I was happy with what I contributed as far as adding different sources from his early life, or linking his family together, because had to get a little bit creative there. Like his sister's, the article I added on his sister doesn't really mention him, and I know that, as I mentioned earlier, one of Wikipedia's things is it should talk about the subject in some sort of depth. But I think in this case, it felt like it would. I mean, nobody turned that resource down specifically yet. Maybe they will later on, but I liked how I was able to just kind of grab these little pieces of information from out there and connect them and add that to the overall story that's of his life. I think that's still an important part of, especially creating a biography. You want to add as much about their life as you can, and their, of course, specifically for this, their contributions, which I think we did a pretty good job of highlighting the things that he's done throughout his career. That shows, he's a noteworthy individual in this space and kind of deserves to be recognized and written about. But that's about everything. It looks like I'm way over the time. Hopefully, that's not an issue. But I don't know. I think I talked a little bit more to kind of ignore the stuffiness in my nose. Ended up making me ramble a little bit. Got quite a bit of notes for this, but anyway, it was a fun and engaging project. Definitely different from anything I've ever done, and uh, I enjoyed the opportunity to do it. And that's about it. Thank you for listening.